All right. Hello, everybody. It's the Meista from Brews and Tunes, your heavy metal drinking buddy. Cheers. I am very excited today. I am chatting with Kragen Lum of multiple bands, actually. Heathen, Prototype, Psychosis, live performer with Exodus, and multiple other things as well. Multi-talented guitar player. So, Kragen, thank you so much for joining me. I'm really excited to be chatting with you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Excellent. Thank you. Why don't we start with kind of what you've been up to recently in this crazy pandemic world that we live in? You know, what's kind of been the last year for Kragen?
Yeah, you wouldn't think that it would be very busy, but it's been really busy. We put the Heathen album out almost a year ago.
Yeah.
To the day almost, looking at the calendar. We had a whole bunch of tour plans for the album, and unfortunately had to postpone everything, and then had to postpone everything again till next year. So in the meantime, really I've been just kind of catching up on other stuff that I put on the back burner when I was working on the Heathen album. Probably a year, just kind of focused mostly on the Heathen record. Working on other things. Right before we got on here, I was doing some work on the cleanup on some files to remix the first Prototype album, Trinity. It's 20 years old, and we recorded it in our rehearsal studio in not very good conditions, and mixed it ourselves basically. So we're just kind of going back and giving it a makeover, so to speak.
Nice.
So that's one thing I've been working on. I manage a bunch of bands. So I work for Exodus, and I manage Heathen, and I manage a band called Pathology, which is on Nuclear Blast, and Abysmal Dawn, that's on Season of Mist.
Oh, yeah.
And a bunch of other bands too, Toxic and Atrophy and Hatriot. Working with a whole bunch of bands, working on getting them going. And Hatriot's actually in the studio, and lots of stuff going on. Young band called War Curse from Cincinnati, Ohio. They're signed to Metal Blade, and just kind of getting them going. And I just started working with this band from Canada called Invicta. If you haven't heard them, check them out. They're really good. They're like the new Revocation. So yeah, they're really good. So yeah, I've had my hands full with a lot of that stuff, and I've actually been writing. I haven't started demoing anything yet, but I have a whole bunch of music already for the next Heathen record. So want to try and get that actually going by next year, so we can finally have a shorter gap in between albums.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was 10 and a half years almost, I think, between.
Yeah, and then 18 before that. So I'm trying to do whatever I can to get the band so that we're more regardless of how much touring happens, I'd like to have more music coming out. Who knows how long the pandemic will go on, or how it will change the touring landscape or whatever. So I love making music, and it's fun to make it with those guys. So
yeah, definitely. And yeah, Empire of the Blind is a great album, really killer stuff. So
thanks.
I'm excited to hear that you're writing more material.
I actually have a list of probably more than enough for an album. So
oh, wow. Nice. Very exciting. That's great news.
Including a contribution from Lee this time.
Yeah. Nice. I didn't realize, I know you do a lot of things. I know you've done production, and you've done engineering, and you've actually done design work for album covers and logos over the years. I didn't realize you were managing so many bands. That's really cool.
Yeah, at various levels. Exodus I'm really busy with Exodus because they have the new record coming out, and Pathology also right now. And bands that are always in different states. You know, those two have releases coming out. You know, a couple other bands were in the studio or are in the studio. And, you know, I mean, these are guys that I, for the most part, I know and enjoy working with, and they're friends. So it's good to be able to help, you know, help other bands get to where they need to go. So
yeah. In fact, I interviewed Josh Christian not too long ago, and
oh, cool.
he was talking about, you know, he was working on some new material for Toxic and was hoping.
Yeah, they're deep into that already. So
that's great.
Yeah.
That's great news. Very cool. Very interesting. Well, yeah, you are an insanely busy guy.
Yeah, well, I like to be busy, maybe not quite this busy.
It's nice to hear. Yeah, a virus is not going to hold back Kragen. He's going to.
No, I actually just finished the Hatred guitar book, and I've got a couple other ones that are in the works too. That I've just, you know, whenever I have a minute, I try and work on stuff. I never like to be idle. I don't sit around and do nothing. I don't know how to do that.
Nice. That's great news. That's cool to hear. Yeah, I'm well, as I said, you know, the fact that there's a new Heathen album coming out and on top of the last one is exciting news for me.
Yeah.
So that's great.
That's a lot of work still to be done on that one, but I think it'll be cool.
That's great. Well, let's maybe go back in time a bit, maybe a lot, and talk about kind of your beginnings in music. And you know, yeah, did you come from a musical family? Kind of, where did you start in terms of guitar work? Where did you start? When did you start playing?
I forgot my first guitar when I was 8. I had already been playing piano, and I loved a lot of the music that I was hearing on the radio at that time. I still can remember when I heard Back in Black for the first time, and that made me more interested in like hard rock and stuff like that. That was kind of, I mean, I liked music, but I don't think I really wanted to buy something or listen to something on a regular basis until around like that age, you know, age 8 or 9. And it was an acoustic guitar. And I remember coming home from a lesson and asking to learn Back in Black, and then trying to play it on the acoustic guitar and looking at my mom and saying, this doesn't sound right. And it wasn't the you know, it was the sound. It wasn't the notes or whatever. And plus, you know, an acoustic guitar for a little kid trying to push down on the frets, it's hard. Like, I think people want kids to start with an acoustic, but really an electric is easier to play in a lot of ways. You know, the strings aren't as hard to push down on. So anyway, and then, you know, I mean, my mom was a backup singer and dancer for Dean Martin, and did USO tours and stuff like that with music groups. And so she studied music in college. And so, you know, I was exposed to that stuff all the time. And it really wasn't until I was like 15 where I wanted to pick up the guitar and take lessons and be a little more serious with it. And I think it was probably the year after that where I started Psychosis. Okay, yeah. When I was in high school. So yeah, and I mean, I was playing gigs by age 17 or whatever. Oh wow. And you know, like booking gigs and doing everything myself, because I was, you know, I didn't know how to do anything, but I just figured it out. So I probably wasn't very good at it back then, but but that was it. I mean, once I got more into guitar and I heard stuff like Metallica and you know, I was a huge Randy Rhoads fan, and just all that sort of early 80s metal, whether it was the heavy thrash stuff or even some of the other not thrash stuff, you know, I loved it and I wanted to play that music. So I just started making my own, you know, stuff.
Now, did you grow up with Vince? And
No, actually, the first lineup of Psychosis was me on vocals and guitar,
oh, okay.
and the drummer that would end up on Life Force, Mike Johnson, and we had a different bass player, Christian Little, and it was just the three-piece. And we kept trying to find somebody else because I didn't really want to sing. And we kept trying to find somebody else, but we really just didn't find the right fit. And eventually, once our bass player Christian left, I met Jason, who's now in Heathen with me also, Jason Mirza, and then met Vince.
Okay.
And then that was basically the Psychosis lineup that most people remember, because that's when we were playing a lot in LA and opening for Sacred Reich and a bunch of other bands, Violence and Nuclear Assault, I think. But we did a lot of shows, and we had a song that was being played on KNAC, and then metal died. So and grunge came in. So it was really difficult to get anywhere, and we struggled for a while. And then eventually, when we had a lineup change, we decided to change the name of the band to Prototype and change the direction of the music a little bit, right, and do something a little more, I don't know, progressive or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because, Psychosis was, pretty much straightforward thrash metal.
Yeah, Bay Area thrash influence for sure.
And then, with Prototype, there was definitely, there was that progressive element to it, and almost even maybe this kind of later stuff, almost a groove metal vibe to some of the music anyway, at least some of the tracks. It seems like there was
interesting. Yeah, the Prototype stuff is, we basically said we don't want to have any rules at all. Like whatever sounds good to us, we'll play. So, we would do all kinds of stuff. And around that time, I was in a guitar program at a jazz music school, and I was learning all these jazz chords, and I was figuring out different ways to sort of finger the chords and make them still heavy, but then use the extra notes to do melodic stuff. So that's what we did. We tried to be a little more unique with the chords and the chord progressions. The thrash stuff of these kind of chord progression wise was all power chords, and there's only so much you can do with that. And not to get too nerdy music person, but the fifth that's in the power chord is in major and minor, so there's no notes that give it color, if that makes sense. Color meaning like what makes it sound happy or sad. It's all just implied in those chord progressions. So we would take not just those notes, but other notes that added color and try to do something where it just sounded really different. So that's what Prototype was always about. And we did that no matter what kind of song it was, whether it was fast or heavy or whatever. We didn't care. It was just whatever sounded good to us. So
nice. And one thing that I was always struck by with your playing, and more so I think it was more pronounced maybe with Prototype, was your tone. Your focus on tone is impeccable in a lot of ways.
Oh, thanks.
I'm not a musician, but I'm kind of a tone freak. Like I love certain guitar players.
Yeah.
And there's just something about, especially on the Prototype albums, that your tone is just, it's so crisp and for lack of a better term, I guess, just kind of meaty. It's very cool.
Yeah, for the most part, we use Mesa Boogie amps, and we did in Psychosis and then in Prototype, and we were just always trying to recreate the sounds that we liked, and essentially we just stuck with the same tone. I think we used a different amp on the Catalyst album. Maybe that's why people don't like it as much as the other two.
I think it's great.
Yeah, I mean, it was a departure because we also used 7 strings, and we experimented with some other things that we hadn't done before, and I think it was hard enough getting people to follow what we were doing on the first 2 records because it's just outside of the norm kind of stuff in some ways.
And especially at that time, I think as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, bands like Dream Theater and Cynic and stuff were doing some unique, cool things. But like, I mean, when Cynic came out, like I loved it. I thought it was awesome, but most people hated it. They couldn't stand it. Like in '93 when the first Focus album came out. So yeah, I mean, we took inspiration from wherever. It didn't matter to us if it was Rush or Metallica or Dream Theater or Cynic or, didn't matter. We didn't care. We just liked it.
Nice.
We played it.
You mentioned that Randy Rhoads was a big influence on your guitar work. Were there other guitar players that kind of that stand out as far as kind of what you were listening to?
Yeah, I mean, Randy Rhoads was an influence, but more in the construction of a guitar solo, I would say. Not as much in the licks that he played. Some of it for sure, but like I'm not like a big pentatonic guy. And so those type of licks, those like what I call 70s blues licks, like I don't really care about playing those. I'd like to do something a little more unique. And he did some of those. But the way that he constructed the solos was what I really loved because they were like part of the song.
Yeah.
Like Over the Mountain is still one of my favorite songs by Ozzy, and also that the solo that's in it, it's just memorable. And the way that he did it, using a piece and then playing it a second time, and then later at the end of the song, he does the same solo or part of it, but in a different key. And it just like, it's a musical trick to get you to keep remembering that. And like, if they ever played that song, which they probably won't, because I don't think Ozzy can sing that high anymore. But you can't imagine the song without that solo in it, And so to me, that's how I look at solos. I look at them as part of the song. I don't want to just I don't want to just play a bunch of notes. And, because a lot of guys do that. They just play a bunch of notes because they're just like, it's a solo, who cares? But to me, it's like, it needs to be meaningful and be a part of the song, or else why play it?
Yeah.
Like if the song doesn't need it, or if the song needs, something simple, then that's what it calls for. I think that's just a different approach, I think, than a lot of the sort of metal players out there, especially the modern guys, that it's like almost like trying to see how many notes they can cram into a solo.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's not always tasteful.
Right.
Jeff Loomis and Brandon Ellis, those guys can play a lot of notes and it's tasteful.
Yeah.
They know how to do it, and they know how to play incredibly technical stuff, but they still have smooth vibrato, and they know where to place the notes. And that's like a whole other level, from what I do. But I just like to make things really feel like they're part of the song. So that's what I do. And sometimes it's hard to come up with that stuff and try to be unique. I try not to play the same licks over and over again. I want it to be different almost, every time. I mean, it's impossible to be completely different every time, but but each song have its own thing, so it's not just like, that's the same lick you played in this other song.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's interesting. And you mentioned Loomis, and yeah, I would say that you're definitely kind of on par with, because I think it kind of comes back to tone. I think, and you said, the vibrato, like you said, there's certain people, it doesn't really matter what they're playing. Like you can tell who it is, like, that their style, their tone.
Like Marty Friedman or Zakk Wylde, or any number of the great players out there. I mean, that's why part of the reason why those guys are so well known. You know, it's not necessarily just that they're not known for their technique.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that most people kind of forget. I mean, everybody's striving to be these super technical shredder guitar players, but Yngwie Malmsteen, who I think changed guitar more than any guitar player since Eddie Van Halen, he's not going to ever be recognized for that because he never wrote a hit song.
Yeah.
And he's known as I mean, he's a creative person and he creates music and he has tons of albums and everything, but it's just, that's really ultimately, I think that's what the difference is. You know, Zakk Wylde is known for his fast playing, but if you watch any videos of him on YouTube just playing without music, he can play everything.
Yeah.
But when he plays stuff for his like Black Label Society or whatever, he plays sort of he has like a bag of tricks that he uses, but he can play way more stuff than that. It's just that it doesn't fit in that music.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, a lot of the guys that can play really, I mean, they can play a lot of notes, but at some point you understand, like, it's got to be a meaningful set of notes, unless it's just a style, you know? Right. So, and there are, you know, to me, there are two kinds of players. There are guys who are lick players where they do, you know, they'll do the one lick and they'll do it 4 times and then they'll play the next lick and then they'll play the next lick. Or there are the guys who like try to create a piece of music, you know. When I oh, my doorbell's ringing. When I hear stuff like Tornado of Souls, for example, like that is a piece. He's crafted this thing where it takes you on a journey and you get to a climactic point and then the solo drops off, you know, and it builds the whole time. To me, that's what solos should be. That's my kind of thing, you know, the kind of creating a piece. So
I totally agree. Yeah. I think it, as you said, it should be part of the song. It should be part of the musical journey. You know,
yeah.
Just, yeah, oh, it's time for a solo. Let's shred like crazy. And yeah.
Yeah.
I was curious, you joined Heathen in 2007, I believe it was.
Yep, that's right.
How did that come about?
We actually had Dave come down to Los Angeles to audition for Prototype.
Oh, interesting.
We were considering getting a different singer at one point. We were frustrated with the lack of label attention, I guess, because there was a period of time there in the late 90s and early 2000s where we were playing with literally every big band that came through LA. And we were getting, you know, praise in magazines, and, you know, we were listed as like best unsigned band in Ill Literature magazine and some others, and we just couldn't get a label deal. We didn't know what was missing. So we just thought we'd explore the idea of getting a different singer. And Dave came down and he auditioned, and he basically was like, I don't know why you need me. You have this, you know, you have Vince who can already sing. You don't need me. So it ended up not working out. But later on, when Heathen needed a guitar player, then Dave called Vince and asked if either one of us would be interested in auditioning. And I said yes. And they wanted me to take 2 weeks and then come up for the audition. And I told Dave, give me 1 more week. And I just really wanted to get it dialed in as much as I could. So I learned Hypnotized, Opiate of the Masses, Dying Season, and Arrows of Agony. I think those were the 4 I learned. Nice. And I went up and auditioned, and at the end of the audition, Lee looked at me and he said, "Do you want to join the band?"
Wow.
So, I said yes, and, you know, that was it. Really, we just got to work on the Evolution of Chaos album.
Nice.
And that took a while for it to come together. We I was in the band for 2 years before we even went in the studio.
Yeah, I would say that came out in 2010. So were you touring with Heathen then? Were you guys touring it at all or no?
Yeah, my first show with Heathen was in 2008. It was the Keep It True Festival. And then we spent some time that whole year basically working on the material for the record and trying to finish writing. I wrote 3 songs, John wrote a couple, and Lee wrote the rest. And there were a couple that didn't make it. Those still have not seen the light of day. But we just kept writing, and at the time I was working for Activision, so I would work Monday through Friday, and then on Saturday morning I would catch a flight up to the Bay Area, and Dave would pick me up, and then we would go right to rehearsal or whatever, and then I would stay at Dave's and sleep on his couch and then get up on Sunday and we would rehearse, and then I would go back, fly back home. I would take the last flight home and then get up and go to work. So we did that for a while, until we, and throughout recording, actually, that was kind of how it was. So it was a lot. And then we put the record out and started touring, right away. We had a West Coast, kind of a Southwest run that we did. And then we did a European tour and Japan. So we were quite busy actually for a while there, for probably through 2012 or 13. We did a lot of touring, especially in Europe.
Oh. And then fast forward, 2013 is when you took over lead guitar work live for Exodus, when Gary Holt was, he started playing with Player. How did that come about? Did they contact you? Did you try out? Was that
we had been on tour? We toured a couple of times with Exodus, where Heathen and Exodus were sharing a bus, and Lee was doing double duty. And on one of the tours, they had Rick with them filling in for Gary.
Okay.
And that was in 2012. And we were on the bus and shared the bus with them. And there were a bunch of times where Rick would want to go explore the city, and they needed somebody to stand in for sound check for him. So I would do Bonded by Blood or something else with them, sound check. And so I just, they knew me from touring already. And when they needed somebody for the 2013 European tour, they asked me if I would do it. Nice. And I said yes, and they gave me a set list, and I learned the songs and went out. And I thought that was going to be it. I thought that it was a one-time thing. All of 2014, I didn't do anything with them. And then at the beginning that's when they released Blood In, Blood Out that year. Gary did a tour, or some touring that year with them. And then in the beginning of 2015, I got a call from Lee, really early in the morning. And I was like, man, I was still asleep. And I was like, I don't know what this is. Maybe he pocket dialed me, or I don't know. So I called him back a little bit later after I got out of bed. And he said, hey, so do you want to go to Australia with us? And I said, sure, when? And he said, tonight.
Jeez.
So I hadn't played any of the stuff for a year and a half. And I had to relearn the set and then learn 2 new songs from Blood In, Blood Out, and practice furiously and pack, and it was crazy. But I'm glad I did it, because once I did that, then anytime they needed someone to fill in, I did it.
Yeah, and as I mentioned to you prior to the interview here, that in fact, I think every time I've seen Exodus, it's been you and not Gary. I don't think I've ever seen Gary live.
Oh, interesting.
I missed there was one time I would have seen him, but traffic got backed up there was an accident or something, and I
Uh,
got to the show right as they were saying goodnight.
yeah.
Because when they opened for Slayer, so I saw Gary play
Yeah.
Slayer, but I've
Was
seen
that the Slayer Suicidal Tendencies tour?
it was
Okay.
yeah. So, but yeah, so I've seen you, which has been fantastic, and
Oh, that's cool.
the 2017, right in front of you, actually.
They're one of my favorite bands of all time. So
Oh,
just to be asked to do it, and I ended up spending about 5 or 6 years playing with them. So it was really cool experience, and I'm glad Gary's back. He's he's in his rightful place, doing what he should be doing, and writing. He had a lot of stuff to get off his musical chest, so to speak, on the new record. So once everybody gets to hear the whole thing, there's a lot of cool shit on there. So
yeah, I'm excited. I put my pre-order in the day that the day that I found out about it. So
yeah.
Yeah, so I'm excited to get a hold of that and check it out. I guess November, I think, is when it comes out.
Yep.
Well, hopefully we'll see who knows, maybe we'll see a Heathen Exodus tour in the not too distant future.
Yeah, we'll see. That's hard on Lee to do double duty like that, but I'd love to make it happen however we can. We're planning a lot of stuff for Heathen for next year. So we'll just have to see how everything plays out. I mean, we keep planning things, and then COVID rears its ugly head again. So hopefully by next year things will be back to normal.
Yeah, fingers crossed. It'd be great to get some live shows in. I've been able to go to, I think, one so far, masked up, and it was a small venue and limited
Yeah.
limited amount of people were allowed, but it was good to get back and see something live, especially some thrash metal. That was nice to see again. So
yeah I mean, everybody misses it. It's been strange. It's been a strange thing. I mean, the football game, the first game of the year last night, finally had people in the stands again. So it was, it's been strange, not just for music, but for anything where it's public entertainment.
Yeah. And I would imagine, as a professional musician, it's got to be tough not to be playing live, not to be in venues, not to.
Yeah. I mean,
but you're very busy, but
I have a love-hate relationship with touring. Like I like playing live and everything, but the travel and being away from home, I'm kind of a homebody. So that part of it's, I also love being creative and working in the studio. So that ultimately, I think as the musician, that's what gives me the most joy, is making music and making something new and really working on it. I mean, like I said earlier, I spent a year working on the Empire of the Blind album, and probably it was mostly me working just at home. I mean, I demoed everything on that album, and I probably won't go that far on this one. I'll try not to demo vocals and do everything that I did for the last one, but I got really into it. I really wanted to make a really cool album that was good from not just from beginning to end, but if you put it on repeat, the outro goes back into the intro, and it's like I call it the circle of death. It's like or cycle of death, or whatever you want to call it. But I wanted to do something really cool and different and interesting, and I think a lot of people got it. There were some fans that I think would prefer the band to just play songs like Goblin's Blade for the rest of the career. But every Heathen album's been different, and the next one will be too. So
yeah. I thought it was great. I love the growth of the band musically. I think that's important. And yeah, I mean, yeah, you want it. There's that sound, there's the Heathen sound, but yeah, I don't want the same album every time. So for me,
Yes, it's really strange. I don't either.
yeah,
I like it when bands do different things. Um, obviously it's got to still have the band's sound. I think that's the key.
yeah,
If they were to change their sound, like when Metallica did Load and Reload or whatever, like I can see you're going to turn people off a little bit because that's not the band's sound. I mean, even the Black album it was the band's sound, but it was more commercial friendly, I guess.
yeah.
But I mean, I think it's important for bands to continue to try and do something different and innovate and not just repeat themselves. What's the point if you're just going to keep writing the same songs over and over again and changing the titles and the lyrics? I mean,
Yeah, I agree definitely. Are there speaking of which, are there, in terms of, kind of expanding and moving forward with music, are there any plans for, at any time of new material for Prototype or Psychosis?
yeah, actually, we're in the middle of recording something for Psychosis right now. So we actually got the Life Force lineup from 1992 back together.
Wow.
And we, when we were playing live at that time, we had probably, I don't know, 15 songs or something like that. 6 of them ended up on Life Force. 2 of them became Prototype songs. And then we had these other songs that we never got to record. So we picked 6 of those that we really thought were great. And we got, we started recording. The drummer actually is a district attorney in Los Angeles now.
Wow.
And so he didn't even have a drum set anymore, but he borrowed one and practiced his ass off. And we recorded like 6 songs, with him, and his tracks have been done. And we have a couple songs of guitars recorded already, but we got to finish that. And it's one of those things where I keep having to juggle and put a ball down so I can pick up another one, and but I really want to finish that because it's cool stuff. It's all songs that were written in 1992 or 3.
Wow.
And we went so far as to take the recording, the isolated guitar recording from Life Force. We got the tape reels from the recording session, and we transferred them to digital, and then got just the guitar tone and sent it off to a guy that I know in Australia that makes Kemper tones on the Kemper profiling amp, and had him make one so that we could use that guitar sound on this recording. So it'll have the same guitar tone.
That's very cool.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're trying to capture the same vibe, the mix is going to be way better. I mean, there's no way around it. It's with modern technology. But so that's one thing. That's what we're doing with Psychosis. And then with Prototype, I mentioned that we're going to be remixing, or actually in the middle of remixing, Trinity. And then we have a new lineup for the band. The bass player is a guy named Mike Baer, who was in the band with us and appeared on the Cloned EP that we put out in 1998. And he's a great bass player. He filled in the US. He did a tour with Insomnium, and he played bass and sang for them because their guy couldn't do it. And he's great. And then the drummer is Mike Heller, who's in Fear Factory and Raven. And he's an amazing drummer. And he has a history with Prototype too. He was a big Prototype fan and used to like write in to the bands back when we used to correspond with people. And so, it should be really cool. We've got a bunch of songs already written. It's just a matter of finding time to finish them and get everything together and record them. So
that's very exciting. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mike Heller's a beast. That guy's a monster.
Yeah, I actually have a whole album of stuff with me singing too, which is a
Oh, wow.
completely different project. And Mike plays drums on that, and Jason from Psychosis and Heathen plays bass. And we've finished that too. That's mostly done. It's most just a matter of me finishing vocals and stuff on that. So
When do you have a target date for when that might be available?
no, it's just I need to just push myself to get things finished. I have this like ridiculous list of, I make myself checklists to do. And unfortunately, that's one of those things where I keep having to push it off because, like this week just got too busy with Exodus stuff and I barely even got to pick up my guitar. So, it's just one of the hats I just gotta carve out enough time to do it.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to keep you all day, but this was great chatting with you. Yeah, what are your plans for this evening? You probably continue to work on your projects, or
no? I mean, I've got a little bit more work to do before the end of the day, and then just spend some time with my wife, going out to dinner and stuff. So
nice. Well, great. Well, Kragen, this was really a lot of fun chatting with you. I thank you so much. Best of luck to you and with all your projects. I'm really excited to see what's coming next. Really excited for that Heathen album, as well as Prototype, and yeah, I can't wait to hear more new music from you. So thank you
awesome.
so much. Yeah, it's been
thanks, man. Thanks for the interview, and I enjoyed it. I anytime we do any of these kind of more conversational interviews, they're really great. You're a great interviewer in that way, kind of leading from one to the other. So it's makes it fun and enjoyable. I appreciate that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you, Kragen.